A new report out today, 5 global airlines signing on to what is known as a common pass, a digital health pass to certify that travelers are free of the coronavirus before boarding the flight. Potentially could catch on as we see more and more countries looking to reopen their borders after so many months of a lockdown. We're talking about United Airlines, Lufthansa, Virgin Atlantic, Swiss Air, and JetBlue. Brian, let me go to you first because you did fly out to LA. Of course, this pass we're talking about is for international travel, but how comfortable did you feel boarding that flight? And do you think having a pass like this that points to passengers already having gone through a test could maybe instill a little more confidence in those travelers who are a little wary of getting on a plane right now?
Well, my concern when I was flying wasn't necessarily getting COVID-19 on the plane itself, but rather when I landed, making sure that I was taking the necessary precautions to make sure that I wasn't sick or getting other people sick once I landed. So I think when it comes to this type of mechanism here, where they would effectively be allowed to survey who on the plane is clear of the virus, I think that's a good thing. The problem, though, is that it's not compulsory for all of the passengers. And until it is, you really don't have the certainty that you're not going to be traveling with anybody else that is going to be sick, or if that you yourself are sick if you don't have this pass. I think what's the bigger takeaway here is that apparently this common pass, as they're calling it, would also be used at some point to provide proof of vaccination. I think that's going to be a more interesting mechanism, not just an airline boarding, but when you go back to the office to prove that you are vaccinated and safe relative to those who don't have that verification.
Yeah, very good points there, Brian. And I recently flew as well. And similar to you, I wasn't concerned so much about my own safety, but I was traveling to see some older family members and I was concerned about them. So I took extra precaution, got a rapid test when I was down there. But I think you also bring up a very valid point that it's not compulsory, and I don't know that it should be because that's going to raise all kinds of issues here. But if it's not 100%, what are you going to do? Group people in different sections? Maybe that would work. I think it's getting along the right lines, but I would just hope that it not be exclusionary. In other words, you can't get on a flight unless you're certified in some way. I know it sounds rough, but I think eventually we're going to get the herd immunity with the vaccines and whatnot, and eventually this will pass. Now, probably not the last pandemic virus that we have, but this is definitely setting some precedents here.
Yeah, and it does feel like things have shifted over the last several months in terms of what the requirements should be, right? We were talking earlier about how the CDC is now no longer recommending the 14-day quarantine. We know a number of states like New York, for example, it's no longer 14 days, but an additional 5 days in getting tested before the concerns around that passenger for a traveler is lifted. So it feels like there's still a lot of questions that need to be answered, but we have seen the policies evolve. So from the airline standpoint, it really, Brian, comes down to the fact that, they just want to try and somehow build confidence in passengers to feel comfortable traveling again.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly it. And I think for anyone thinking about traveling for the holidays, that's the most important thing. Make sure you follow the quarantine, make sure you follow the guidelines, because there's no real body kind of forcing you to do this. It's kind of on you to make sure you follow your rules and responsibilities.
Okay, well, I will be traveling to the West Coast. I think we'll be crisscrossing in the air.